In this lecture, I will go ahead and I will talk about chapter 3 of Varian, and the name of the chapter is Preferences. Now, let us first, try and understand what are preferences to begin with. Now, what is a preference in general terms when I just talk about, anything in terms of English? Well, preference is when you would just say, you know what, if you give me Coca-Cola and Pepsi, I'm going to prefer Pepsi over Coca-Cola. Or, if you give me, let's say, McDonald's and Burger King, I'm going to prefer McDonald's over Burger King. That concept where one individual prefers one product over the other, that is called the concept of preferences. Now, economics is all about consumers. And because economics is about consumers, economics is about preferences. So we want to understand what are these preferences from the point of view of consumers. What are preferences from the point of view of the concept of rationality? So what we will do is we'll try and understand what are the assumptions that we hold. What is an indifference curve? How does that indifference curve work? How does that indifference curve change when the preferences change? And so on. To begin with, let us try and understand the first important thing, which is known as consumption. What is a consumption bundle? A consumption bundle is nothing but how many units of each commodity you are going to consume. So for example, if I consume X1 units of good 1, X2 units of good 2, and so on till if I consume Xn units of good n, this is called my consumption bundle. So my consumption bundle is X1 units of good 1, X2 units of good 2, and so on till Xn units of good n. Although we would love to go ahead with this n commodity case, sometimes, actually a lot of times, it is very difficult for us to go ahead and work with this n commodity case. Now you may ask, why is that the case? The answer is, when I talk about n commodity case, if I have to plot this, that would mean an n-dimensional figure. So for example, let's say that I have to plot an n commodity case, something like this. If something is, let's say, 2-dimensional, I will have x-axis and y-axis. If something is 3-dimensional, I will have x, y, and z axis. Now imagine something being n-dimensional. If something is n-dimensional, I am going to have a figure like this. There would be many dimensions. Imagine something being in n dimension. And now, if I have to plot this, just imagine, when you're in a room, you are in 3 dimensions: height, height, width, and breadth. Right? There are 3 things: L into B into H, length, breadth, height. There are 3 things. Now, it's very simple to understand. Imagine I take this point in a room. this point or this coordinate of this room is going to have some length, some breadth, and some height. This is still three-dimensional. Imagine if I tell you something in an n-dimensional space. It becomes very difficult for me to imagine that. Well, we want to avoid this problem mathematically. I don't want to go into details of n dimensions because whatever holds for 2 dimensions can then be, assumed to be true for an n-dimensional case. So for the purpose of easing out things, we would never be dealing with a n-dimensional consumption bundle. Well, it is easy to deal with that. I can definitely go ahead and say that this is my n-dimensional consumption bundle. There is nothing wrong with that. But I would not want to do that. And instead, what I would want to do is, I would want to have just a 2-dimensional consumption. How does a 2-dimensional consumption bundle really look like? Where I just have 2 commodities. So a 2-dimensional consumption bundle is anything which is like this. X1 units of good 1, X2 units of good 2, and this becomes a 2-dimensional consumption bundle. How do I show that? That's the easiest thing to do. You just plot it in the XY domain. So you have your x-axis, you have your y-axis. You take a point like this. Supposedly you are consuming x1 units of good 1 and let's say x2 units of good 2. Then this right here is your consumption bundle. How do I present it? The consumption bundle is of the form x1, x2. Okay. Now, if we understand well what is a consumption bundle, the next concept that we have to try and understand is consumer preferences. And the first preference I want to talk about is strict. How do I represent strict preferences? I represent strict preferences by something like this. Now, this is the sign. Please note this carefully, okay? This sign is different from the greater than sign, okay? This is a little curvy. So ideally I'm drawing something like this. It's curvy rather than the greater than sign. So what are strict preferences? Assume that you have 2 consumption bundles. Let's say one is this consumption bundle A, and let's say that I take another consumption bundle given by some other coordinates. So let's say that I take a consumption bundle which looks something like this, maybe a point like this, B. This consumption bundle has more amount of good 1. Wow, it is giving me more of good 1. And in fact, this is also giving me more of good 2. Amazing. So let's say good 1 represents pizza. And let's say good 2 represents Coke. Now, consumption bundle B has more of pizza and more of Coke. So I love consumption bundle B more over consumption bundle A. How do I show this economically? Well, let's go back and check this out. So strict preferences are the preferences where one consumption bundle is strictly preferred over other consumption. How do I write this out? I can say that consumption bundle B is strictly preferred over consumption bundle A. How? What were the points that were giving consumption bundle B? Let's say X1 dash and Y1 dash. This is strictly preferred to X1, Y1. Then this is strict preferences. You know, B had more pizza, B had more cold drink. Then there is no reason why I should not prefer B over A. Given these two bundles, I will always be inclined towards the preference. I would always have more preference. I will always be inclined towards consumption bundle B. So therefore, I will always go for consumption bundle B. Now, what is utility? Something I will introduce you in the next chapter. But what is utility if I have to tell you? Utility is how much satisfaction you get from consumption. That is utility. So the amount of satisfaction that you obtain by consuming a consumption bundle is utility. Your consumption bundle can consist of either only one commodity. That's also a consumption bundle. So, you know, my consumption bundle can only consist of pizza. My consumption bundle can consist of two commodities, pizza and cold drink. My consumption bundle can consist of four commodities, pizza, cold drink, dresses, television or Netflix. That's up to me. What my consumption bundle is to me, what it holds out for me. But the point here is that utility is what satisfaction you gain, you obtain from that consumption bundle. And now we say that as your preferences become strict. So what are strict preferences here? That B was strictly preferred to A. B had more of both of these codes. So B was strictly being preferred to A. If that is the case, then I can rewrite this thing in terms of utility as utility from consumption bundle B is greater than. Now look at the change in sign. This was inclined sign. This is greater than sign. So utility from this consumption bundle is greater than the utility from the other consumption bundle. So now we have gone right from preferences towards utility. That is important for you to understand. So we started with the concept of preferences, but we rewrote that statement in terms of utility. So if a bundle, let's say B, is strictly preferred to bundle A, then the utility from bundle B will be greater than, strictly greater than the utility from bundle A. So we go from a concept of preferences to a concept of utility. Is that okay? Now, this is the first kind of preferences that we have, which is known as strict preferences. Second kind of preferences that we have are called indifferent preferences. Supposedly, I take these two bundles. Let's go back to our bundle that we plotted. So I take a bundle A, and this bundle A had x1 units of good 1, x, O, y, and x2 units of good 2. This was bundle A, where good 1 was nothing but pizza, amount of pizza, and good 2 was nothing but the amount of cold drink. Now, supposedly, I give you two bundles. In the first bundle, I tell you that, I'm going to give you 3 pizzas, but I will just give you 2 cold drinks with them. And I give you another bundle, I'm going to tell you I give you 1 pizza, but I'm going to give you 5 cold drinks with them. And I ask you, which one would you prefer? So, different individuals, different preferences. But supposedly, you go through a process and you think that, okay, so, let's say that, you love pizzas also and you love cold drink also. And now you start going through this process and you think, you know what? I am giving up 2 pizzas. That's a lot to give up. But I'm also getting 3 cold drinks in return. I'm giving up 2 pizzas, but I'm getting back 3 cold drinks. Well, this is a good deal to make. But you also think that, 3,2 was also a good bundle to pick. And you end up making your mind that you are indifferent between the 2 bundles. Both the bundles give you the same level of satisfaction. Whether somebody gives you 3,2 or somebody gives you 1,5, the level of satisfaction that you get, the level of happiness that you get, utility that you get is the same. If that is the case, if 2 bundles give you the same level of satisfaction, the same level of utility, the same level of happiness, then they are called as indifferent bundles. So what is an indifferent bundle? Supposedly, this is 3,2, and now I give you 5 cold drinks, x2 dash, but I just give you 1 pizza. This point B right here. And now you tell me that, either this point or this point B or point A, both of these points give you the same level of satisfaction. If that is the case, then you are indifferent between bundle A and B. And the sign of indifference is this. This is indifferent preferences. Now, if we have to write this indifference preferences in terms of utility, how will we write that out? Very simple. So, if bundle A and B are such that you are indifferent between bundle A and bundle B, then the utility from bundle A will be equal to the utility from bundle A. So if two bundles have the same level of satisfaction, you are indifferent between bundle A and bundle B, then the utility from bundle A will be the same as the utility from bundle B. Now, let's see the third kind of preferences, and those preferences are known as weak preferences. What are weak preferences? Weak preferences are a combination of strict preferences plus indifference. So when we combine these two things together, that gives you weak preferences. So weak preferences would mean the following. If I take any two bundles such as x1, x2 and x1 dash, x2 dash, these are two bundles. This is bundle A, this is bundle B. Then weak preferences would mean that A is weakly preferred over B. What does this mean? This means that it will consist of all those bundles such that A is strictly preferred over B. Either this is going to be the case that A is strictly preferred over B, it consists of that, or either A and B are indifferent to each other. So if you are indifferent to each other, if A and B are indifferent to each other, then also it's a case of weak preference. If A is strictly preferred to B, then A is also weakly preferred to B because it is strictly preferred to B. So if A is strictly preferred to B, this implies that A is also weakly preferred to B. If A is indifferent to B, that also implies that A is weakly preferred to B. Right? So you have to understand that if this is the case, this is also something which can come here. If this is the case, this is also something that can come here. So this is a bigger set. It involves both of these scenarios. We'll see how that happens. We'll very shortly shade the weakly preferred region and we'll understand that in detail. But now the point here is the following. If A is weakly preferred to B, then utility of A is greater than or equal to utility of B. This is in terms of utility. So the satisfaction that you get from A is either greater than the satisfaction you get from B or equal to the satisfaction you get from B. These are the three important kinds of preferences that you should understand before we go ahead into building the indifference curve.